Most conversations about cheating start too late. They begin after the damage is done, after the shock, after the questions that sound like accusations. Why would you do this? How could you risk everything? But those questions never reach the place where the decision was actually made. Because infidelity rarely begins at the moment of betrayal. It begins in the quiet parts of your life that no one sees, in thoughts you don't say out loud, in feelings you minimize because they seem unreasonable. You may have told yourself nothing was wrong, that this was just restlessness, that every long-term relationship goes through this, and maybe that's why it took you so long to notice what was happening inside you. This isn't a story about temptation, it isn't about impulse or lack of control, and it isn't about loving someone less. It's about something far more uncomfortable. The slow shift that happens when you lose contact with your own sense of value. When being loved is no longer the same as feeling chosen. When reassurance stops landing even when it's still being given. Most people never learn how to name that experience. They only learn how to escape it. And once you understand where it actually begins, the question is no longer why someone cheated. It becomes something quieter and much harder to ignore.
Low self-esteem and validation dependence.
When your sense of worth depends on how others see you, love doesn't settle into your body. It passes through. It needs constant reinforcement. You might be in a committed relationship and still feel unsure of your value, not because your partner's doing something wrong, but because reassurance never lasts. Compliments fade quickly. Affection becomes background noise. Psychologically, this is contingent self-worth. Your value exists only when it is reflected back to you. A simple example makes this clearer. Imagine being in a relationship where your partner loves you, but they assume you know that. They don't constantly affirm it. They don't look at you with urgency anymore. Then someone else does, a coworker, a friend, someone who has no history with you. They look at you like you matter, and suddenly you feel taller inside your own body. That feeling isn't love. It's a relief. For a moment, the internal voice saying you're not enough goes quiet. The affair doesn't feel good because of intimacy. It feels good because the self-criticism stops. But once validation becomes your regulator, it changes how you experience closeness. Insecure attachment patterns. As the relationship deepens, expectations grow. Emotional exposure increases. You are no longer just desired. You are needed. For someone with insecure attachment, especially anxious avoidant patterns, this doesn't feel comforting. It feels pressurizing. You want closeness, but you don't trust what it demands. You feared being fully known. You fear losing yourself inside someone else's expectations. So you start pulling away. Not dramatically, quietly. You answer a little slower. You share less. You keep more of yourself private. An affair offers a different experience of closeness. It's intense, but contained. You can connect without being exposed. For example, with the affair partner, there are no shared responsibilities, no future conversations, no expectations of consistency. You get emotional nourishment without emotional captivity. Cheating becomes a way to stay connected while keeping distance intact. You feel fed, but not trapped. Over time, this avoidance doesn't just affect intimacy. It begins to reshape your entire emotional focus.
Narcissistic self-focus.
This is where many people misunderstand cheating. It's not always driven by arrogance. Often, it's driven by fragility. In vulnerable narcissism, the self-image is unstable. Silence feels like rejection. Distance feels like abandonment. You become highly sensitive to how others respond to you. Your emotional world turns inward, not because you don't care about others, but because you're constantly managing how you feel about yourself. The affair partner becomes a mirror. When they admire you, you feel intact. When they desired you, your identity stabilizes. A simple example illustrates this. When the affair partner cancels plans, you feel shaken. When they reach out again, you feel whole. Your mood depends on their attention. This isn't about manipulation, it's about self-regulation. Your partner and the affair partner are unconsciously used as emotional stabilizers, not to build mutual connections, but to manage your internal state, and no mirror can hold forever. The shame relief addiction cycle. After the relief fades, shame arrives, quietly at first, then heavily. You replay what you did. You feel disappointed in yourself. You tell yourself it won't happen again. But shame doesn't create clarity, it creates withdrawal. You become emotionally distant, less present, less responsive. Your partner feels it even if they don't know why. The relationship grows colder. Loneliness increases. Psychologically, this creates a negative reinforcement loop. The behavior repeats not because it brings pleasure, but because it removes pain. A clear example looks like this. You cheat, you feel relief, then guilt. The guilt makes you withdraw. The withdrawal creates loneliness. Loneliness pushes you back toward the one thing that previously numbed the pain. You aren't chasing excitement anymore, you're escaping emotional distress until the cycle becomes familiar, automatic, difficult to interrupt. Beneath this cycle, however, there is usually a deeper fracture. Inner-outer self misalignment. At some point, your external life stops matching your internal truth. You don't feel fully alive in the role you're playing, but you don't know how to confront that without causing damage. You don't know how to ask for more. You don't know how to leave. You don't know how to tolerate the discomfort of honesty. So you divide yourself. One version stays responsible, loyal, functional. The other looks for aliveness in secrecy. Psychologically, this is identity incongruence, a lack of self-concept clarity, not knowing who you are or how to live that truth safely. A simple example is feeling like a different person with the affair partner, more expressive, more alive, more honest. Not because the affair partner is special, but because they represent a version of you that doesn't exist in your everyday life. Cheating becomes a shortcut to authenticity without the risk of openness. Infidelity is rarely about sex, and it's rarely about love. It's about self-worth that was never fully anchored, attachment wounds that were never named, and an inner life that quietly drifted away from the life being lived. Understanding this doesn't undo the damage, but it does explain why punishment, guilt, or promises rarely stop the pattern on their own. Cheating ends when the internal conflict no longer needs secrecy to survive. And maybe the most important question isn't why cheating happened, but what part of you was trying to feel real again. If this resonated in any way, you don't have to explain everything. You can simply say what stood out to you, or what felt uncomfortably familiar. Sometimes naming one honest thought is enough to begin seeing the pattern more clearly.